Alright guys, welcome back. We're Kenter at Your Own Risk, and we're hitting up episode 40, part 2 of our Nightmare on Elm Street franchise podcast. We're going to let Kevin kick this part off, and it's going to be talking about Freddy's Revenge and Nightmare on Elm Street part 2.
Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street part 2, Freddy's Revenge, and released in 1985. Directed by Jack Shoulder and written by David Chaskin. This one is very different from the first one and probably all the rest of them, or most of them anyways. That it's not any of the characters from the first movie, but the house that is possessed by Freddy Krueger with the new family, with Jesse and his parents, and I don't know, did he have a sibling? I think so, but
yeah, Angela. They were the Walshes. I think his sister was Angela. Yeah, it's Angela Walsh.
Jesse Walsh sounds like a 90210 character.
Definitely.
And what I liked about that it's a possession story is that it doesn't really leave a mystery that Jesse is the killer, because Freddy Krueger comes to Jesse in his dreams. And that is how he murders more people, and into where he becomes Freddy Krueger and comes into the real world, the non-dream world. So yeah, I really, in that scene too, also with like Freddy Krueger's brain pulling, the brain scene, really great special effects on that. So I guess I'll start. I mentioned that this is the first one that I probably saw all the way through at like 10 years old. I watched 1 through 6 in like 2013 all together, and I don't really remember much about that experience except for the opening shot of the bus and the ending shot of the bus. And then I watched in October. It was the only Nightmare on Elm Street movie I saw. I just have seen the first one so many times. I was like, I'll just skip that, go to the second one. And I picked up a little bit on the homoerotic stuff on that. And then going into it this time, I wasn't really excited to rewatch it 3 months later, but throughout the whole series, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and like watch this and like crack this case. And it turns out there's like a whole bunch of information about it all over the place. Never Sleep Again discusses it, and then there is the Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, which is Mark Patton's experience on who plays the lead character Jesse, aka the final boy. So I kind of wondering, did you guys? When was the last time you guys watched this?
The last time I watched this was probably in the early 2000s, so we were talking like close to 20 years for me.
And did you pick up on the homoerotic stuff
then? No, I didn't. And I mean, like for me, no, go ahead, Ken. Answer Kevin's questions first. I'll go after.
I probably saw it within the past 5 years because Raylene had never seen it, and I always talk about how much I hate the movie, so yeah. As far as the homoerotic stuff, I mean, I'd only known about it, I think both you guys know Dominic, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like you guys did theater with Dom?
Yeah.
Okay, so I only knew about the homoerotic because I talked Nightmare on Elm Street with him, and he's like, did you know? And I was like, no. And then like I watched it again, and I was like, oh yeah, that's all pretty damn obvious. If once you know it, it's like hitting you, slapping you right in the fucking face. But yeah, otherwise I didn't think anything really.
To see it, you can't unsee it. And that's how I felt this time watching it.
I mean, once you see the box of cereal called Fu Manchus, you can't unsee that either.
Yeah, that's very true. I don't to go. I mean, to tie along with that, Kevin. Before we started this project, I would have put this one at the bottom. Completely worst out of all of them. And after rewatching them, it sits right at number 6 for me. So the top of the bottom half.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Still my bottom.
To go along with the Freddy brain scene, the scene where Freddy pops out of Jesse's body is probably one of the best practical effects that they did in the entire series.
Oh yeah, that was a cool one. So all right, to kind of sidestep all of that, because there is a whole bunch of information out there. They're like the Scream Queen, My Nightmare with on Elm Street is on Shudder, so if you have that, you can check that out. But and which is a great documentary.
What did you learn from that? Because I watched like the first 15 minutes. Yesterday was the Royal Rumble, and I just had a shitload of things, so I didn't quite get through. Is that documentary more? All right, so like the first 15 minutes, there's not a whole lot about the movie. It's mostly about what's his name?
Yeah,
Mark,
Jesse.
Right?
Oh, you're talking about the documentary,
like,
yeah.
Does it dive more into the movie, or is it more about his experience in the? I guess
it is the experience, his experience through the movie. The conversation started with the 2010 documentary Never Sleep Again, and he agreed to do that if he could ask David Chaskin straight up if he meant to make it so all the
okay.
A gay movie, and that's kind of done in that, but he didn't actually get to ask him, and then he gets to sit down and ask him, and it's on the 30th anniversary. They do a convention run with it, and it kind of follows some of that too. It goes all the way through the movie, and it goes like picks it out scene by scene. So there was quite a bit more information than the 30-minute segment in Never Sleep Again. And that he, knew that they were doing this, and, he was not out of the closet, but people knew that he was gay because of the, he did the Robert Altman thing and theater, and people just kind of knew. And then at that time, in 85, the same year the movie came out, Rock Hudson died of AIDS. So there was so anyone, in the whole AIDS crisis, and, America got very homophobic, and it kind of just talks about how he went back into the closet, and then he stars in this movie, and it just all kind of just so happens. But as far as a Freddy Krueger movie and a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, it really doesn't work. I think especially, but it's fun the way it doesn't work. It's in some sense, I don't think everything was super intentional to be. I think a lot of it was like a product of the times. Comparison would be like Top Gun, which is, Quentin Tarantino has this, monologue thing about a little bit about how that movie is about Maverick, coming to terms with his homosexuality. And that was all, that's just stuff you read into. It's completely unintentional. The volleyball scene is definitely just a product, of the times. And, the scene where Mark as Jesse is dancing in the room by himself is, I didn't think that as they were intentionally trying to, make it. Yeah. Because also,
that was a fun scene, actually.
It was done in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which I saw, around the same time as Freddy 2. So that was just kind of stuff that I watched as a kid, the 80s and early 90s of weird dance sequences that don't really do anything.
Right. that was like the thing of the time was, you had these cheesy little dance sequences where, people thought they were alone. I mean, look at Corey Haim in the bathtub in fucking Lost Boys,
Sure.
kind of doing, something along the same line, like that was just a thing. Kevin, you just said something, and that was actually a question I was going to ask. You said, did this work, or, as a Freddy movie, or would this movie have been... Would this film have worked better if it wasn't part of the Nightmare on Elm Street, or did it need Freddy Krueger to get seen?
They wanted to go with the possession angle because of the Exorcist and the Omen were big. Well, I guess maybe not the Omen, but yeah, the Exorcist was like a big movie, so I think they were just trying to find something that has worked successfully and try to go that route. I mean, and basically they're all kind of like after school specials after the first one, I feel like. And this one would be the LGBTQ one. Yeah. And then, 3 would be like teen suicide, and then 4 would be I
think
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. 4 is definitely something.
MTV
I don't know. But
great.
5 is like, teen pregnancy and, being a single mom in the world. So,
Yeah, 5 is definitely teen
and
pregnancy.
that, I mean, it's a
Yes.
great after school special, but yeah, it's just weird. And also, I think the thing is that there's dream sequences, but I don't think anyone dies in any of the dream sequences. Jesse wakes up in class with the snake around him. Freddy Krueger.
How did the snake get around him?
I'm going to have to assume that one of the people who were fucking with him took it out of the thing and put it around him. Maybe they passed it student to student.
Okay,
So the
because I'm sitting there like, the snake box or container was on one side, then there was Jesse, and then there was the guys laughing.
The snake definitely didn't teleport. Yeah, I know that for certain.
I don't know. Okay.
There are a lot of things I liked about this one for all of its failures. Like, I like the character of Ron, his buddy, his possible love
Brady?
interest. Yeah. Yeah, he would have been really easy to trope him and make him almost the same as what's his nuts from the first one. Pulling out a switchblade from his leather jacket.
Rod?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt that they did a good job with his character. Especially in regards to the homoerotic contexts that we have. Also, they did I didn't like the change to Freddy. This was the one where they said he was a janitor at a power plant rather than, at the school. And he took the kids to the power plant, which is why he was, down among the boilers and shit. So that didn't work for me. But, when, what was her name, Robin? Lisa. When she's going there at the end and, those 2 dogs with the fucking human faces show up. And they're just going, that's one thing that surprised me is that, Freddy didn't use more, entities in a lot of these dreams. It's props and it's him. I don't know. I figured, if he's probably in complete control of the entire, dream, he should be able to, add, other things. Anyways, I thought that was an interesting take. But yeah, like you said, it fails at mostly being a Nightmare on Elm Street franchise piece, and a lot of what it puts forward has to be retconned in future installments. And I mean, I think it's supposed to take relatively place chronologically, where the movie came out. It wasn't trying to set itself 10 years after the original. So the fact that everybody forgot about all the kids who got fucking, they had to research and look it up to see that, just last year, 3 kids within, the same 2-block radius all got fucking murdered. And the woman died, and, they didn't know that the mother died until they had to let him know. I mean, that's the kind of thing that, like I could buy in Sinister, moving into a house where, 15 years prior, people had been murdered. But moving into a house where, like, the year before, half the family got fucking killed. I don't know.
Yeah, it must have been a few years after at least, but even
5
that,
years
I guess you would came.
They said 5 years.
5 years?
And this is where the math is going to get super sloppy come part 3. I'm just telling y'all right now, this math is going to get really fucking awful. And then when part 6 comes, when you see that map scene in the very, very beginning, that's 10 years past. Yeah. The future is now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and that's actually about 3 is where I stopped trying to like piece everything.
So did
together.
everybody else involved, I think.
Oh, I think they gave up before then, actually. But Marshall Bell as the gym teacher, where it was just kind of like, well, it was said that he kind of like, picks up guys at the gay bar and and hits on his students. That was like really blatantly said. And then Jesse just shows up at the gay bar and then he like takes him to the showers, and it was a very odd. It was still kind of odd that they Freddy Krueger would want to kill that guy. I don't know. It was just, because he's now killing adults, and that really wasn't,
killing
the whole
adults who
point of
made
it.
like punishing kids, like it. I don't know. Yeah, I wondered the same thing. It seemed very.
It would be the last guy he wanted to kill.
Right.
It would be like, why isn't he possessing this guy?
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if you guys would agree, but I really think that both Lisa and Jesse's actors were just like not very good. I mean, Mark Patton might have been going through a bunch of shit while he was filming it, but like that, for assistant director needed to be like, "Yo, dude, tone this shit down."
The high-pitched screaming and stuff, like, really, aside from Freddy, I would say Grady was the next best actor, and maybe, I personally like Clu Gulager, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but I liked him better in something like Feast or Return of the Living Dead. Here, he kind of wasn't the greatest, so I think Grady really showed up as the best actor that wasn't Robert Englund.
I would agree. But like, Lisa was horrible, and not to pick on anybody's appearance, but like, she didn't work as like an attractive scream queen. She wasn't a good actress, so I was like, how did she get the part? You know what I mean?
It almost felt intentional to put more attention on Jesse.
And that, knowing the context now, that probably explains why.
Like, I think that's exactly what happened. They're like,
well,
we don't want a girl to outshine him.
Well, they switch. There's like a gender swap almost. Like it's like almost like an acting class experiment where who would be the boyfriend in the first movie is the scream queen or the final girl, and then she kind of has to like become more, like the savior of it, the one who like protects him, as like, it's a very like, it's usually different. And so one thing that he said was, about the experience was the production designer was gay also. And so there was like all of the flares to that, but the production designer had to like come up to him and be like, do not let Robert Englund put that blade in your mouth or it'll look like you're blowing him. So someone knew what was going on.
All right. I need to vent about this movie. Because, alright, first and foremost, I want to say this. I remember hanging out in Kmart in Amsterdam when I was young. I'd already seen, some of the Nightmare on Elm Streets. I'd never seen this one, so I'd seen like 1, 3, 4, and 5, we'll say. Maybe even Freddy's Dead, and still hadn't seen this damn movie. But I would be in Kmart and I'd look at the VHS, I'd be like, I really need to see this, and I'd read the back. I was like, this looks so awesome. And, quite frankly, the first scene, the bus scene, is one of the actual best scenes in Nightmare on Elm Street history, I think. Like, it's really well done. And that's as good as the movie ever gets for me. It really, the opening scene really shouldn't be by far the best scene. It does happen sometimes, but, whatever. But there's just a lot of nonsense that just, it feels like extra stuff just to pad the timing. Like the stuff in the family, like dad being pissed, like, you're not going out until you unpack your clothes. Oh, okay. Like, what's it matter? You're forcing your son to unpack his clothes, throw them in as sloppily as possible. And by the way, if you're trying to nail a girl, you're not just going to throw your clothes in the way he does. You'd, put them in nicely so your clothes aren't all wrinkled so you don't come off like a complete asshole, I would think. What do I fucking know, though? I'm still not sure if anybody really died in this movie. The ending, I don't know. Like, who did die? Aside from the coach, I really don't know who the fuck died. The bird died. I know the bird died. That's the one thing I can be sure of. The
parakeet. Yeah, I forgot about that scene.
And when you're watching it, trying to put myself into the mental state of when I first saw this, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, why is there a bird just going apeshit and exploding? And why is the toaster randomly going on fire? Like, what does this... I'm trying to tie it to everything else I had known, once again, 1, 3, 4, and 5, and it was really tough to tie it together. And I'm sitting there like, okay, so they say that Nancy went crazy, yet somehow they just magically left her fucking diary there? I feel like, with the mom having quote-unquote died in the living room per this one, I don't know, I just feel like the diary, it was kind of in plain sight. It wasn't like it was tucked under a floorboard or something. It was right there. It wasn't like the hardest thing at all to find. It was pretty obvious. Seems... And the dream sequences weren't that good, and I gave this an incredibly low rating, only in the fact that if you're going to call this a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, then I got to treat this as a Nightmare on Elm Street movie and not its own movie. If it was like its own movie, I could have given it some more wiggle room, but it didn't work for me as a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, unfortunately. The party scene was just... Really, the party scene. You know what the best part of the party scene was for me? Was the one partier, no-name partier, goes, just calm down, all right? Relax. It's going to be all right. Nobody's going to hurt you. Just tell us what you want, all right? I'm here to help you. And Freddy's response is, help yourself, fucker. That's the best part of the party scene for me.
It goes against just about everything we said about the first one, which was subtle and restrained and laid back, low body count. I mean, the party scene alone has probably a higher body count than all of the movies put together, in the rest of the series. Maybe with the exception of the remake.
I will say I liked Lisa's father, except I wish he was played by Christopher McDonald. But I still liked him. I loved how subtle the quote-unquote teens were. As soon as the parents' lights go off, let's all scream, hoot, and holler, and then go from this, swanky, music that nobody listens to 80s music. It was like, there was no subtlety. It was just so, I just...
I like how he was drinking scotch in bed with his wife at that time. That actually made me happy. Like, all right. Damn kids.
I think he was actually probably my favorite character, aside from Grady, was Lisa's father, because he has a very small role, but he's entertaining. He has that great, Shit, I don't even remember. I think it was Mr. Wonderful was written on his apron. That was solid.
I could see him playing him if they ever did like a remake of this one. Is Larry Fessenden.
Oh, Larry would be... Yes. Larry would be fantastic.
Who's that?
Oh, I would say look him up during one of the breaks, Kevin. You definitely... I would think you would know him. You might not, but I think you will. I want to throw out one other thing that I did like, since I'm usually very negative on this. And there was this line at the school cafeteria where Carrie, like, I don't know how much of a part she had, but she was the other girl. They come over, sit with the guy. She goes, "Hi, Ron. So, you going to Lisa's house tomorrow night?" And he goes, "Nope, can't. I'm grounded." She goes, "How come?" "I threw my grandmother down a flight of stairs."
What? I didn't miss that.
Where the fuck did that come from? And, like, why was that the answer?
That in the movie.
I rewound it 3 times trying to see if there's context to it, and there's no context to it.
Wow. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it's... Oh, and I liked "Did You Ever See a Dream Walking" by Bing Crosby at the end. That was a good song to use for a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, just not this one. Oh, and what's up with the font? Did anybody else notice, like, the font almost felt like Superman font? Like, at the very opening, they're like, "Nightmare on Elm Street 2." And then it says Freddy's Revenge in this, like, bright silver, like, metallic-looking stuff. And it's like, that doesn't look anything like what you would associate with a horror movie. It's more like a comic book action movie than horror. It was just a strange choice of font.
85, man. 1985. They were still trying to figure it out. Obviously, they didn't figure it out with this one, but they were trying to figure it out.
No. There was also a guy at the party, which I guess could happen, but this guy had a full-on, like, porn mustache going on. Like, I just figure he might have been, like, an assistant, and they're just like, "You got a great mustache. You belong in this party." And he just walked on. They got one shot of him with his mustache, and he walked away. Don't know who he is, but he was great.
All right. Do we have anything else to say about part 2?
If I never see it again, I'll be happy.
Okay, so the only thing is, when you're asking about Jesse's acting, this is something that was in the documentary, was when they came out, his agent says, "Well, we know you can't play straight anymore," and basically he retired from acting after that. But yeah, so I don't know. But I'm pretty fond of it because it's kind of like cheesy 80s acting, you know. I wouldn't put it up to the bar.
Yeah. No, it wasn't horrible, and it wasn't out of place, but it wasn't, like what I would look for in my main character in a movie. And it's shitty, the shit that he had to go through in regards to that kind of stuff.
But pretty.
Oh yeah, absolutely horrible.
But pretty good for a movie of the week.
Yeah, and like you said, if you look at them as after-school specials, that's a fucking great take, Kevin.
Yeah, it's an important after-school special, just not an important Freddy Krueger movie. Okay.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap up part 2 of episode 40 here, and we'll be back in a minute for Kent to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street part 3, The Dream Warriors.